Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode. This is Oddly Enough. I'm Audrey and I'm stoked to have you here with me this week. So before I get going, I wanted to take a second to introduce to you the series that's going to be taking us through the month of March. So I mentioned on my Instagram, which if you're not following me there, go check it out. Got some fun stuff over there, is that I'm going to be focusing in this month on kind of the inspiration behind it is this book that my wonderful best friend Kayla gave to me called Witty Words from Wise Women. So using the inspiration of this Women's History Month to align with the topics that I'm going to share. Specifically, there's some awesome badass women in this book. So they're going to guide some of the things that we talk about. And specifically what we're going to be talking about this week is really about limiting beliefs. Okay, so we're going to really focus in on what are some of those limiting beliefs we might currently have. Maybe we don't even know that they're there. Maybe we've got our blind spots up. How can we eliminate that barrier to get us closer to what we want, and how we can truly do that by simply limiting those limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves. All right, let's do it. Before we get started, a little story to kick off this week. Something I wanted to share with you, and it's around the notion of limiting beliefs. We all have them, okay? So yesterday I attend Orange Theory Fitness, and yesterday I caught wind that we were going to be having a mile benchmark workout. So run 1 mile as fast as you can while you're on the treadmills. And it quickly brought me back to my college softball days. So I know I talk a lot about athletics, and I know I talk about how that's really shaped who I am and a lot of what what I stand for and what I'm about. I will say though, growing up, I was never a runner. And if any of you guys know athletics, the pitcher is in a circle. We have boundaries. We try to stay in that circle. We get yelled at if we come out of that circle to field a ground ball, because we tend to be clumsy. We tend to be throw the ball, let the team take care of the agility part of the sport. So with that, I just was never really much of a runner. I could get through workouts. I could, stick with my team and do what we need to do to condition ourselves. But I always had this block about running. And to begin every single season in my college softball career, we started the season off by running a mile, and we had to do so under 8 minutes. And I struggled every single time. And most of the struggle came from psyching myself out. So all summer, we had this conditioning plan: stay in shape, do these things. When you come back, if you can run a mile under 8 minutes, we know you've been doing what we intended you to do over your break. And I would just psych myself out, like I said. For the week leading up to return to campus for the season, it would weigh on my mind. I couldn't even go out to dinner because I just was at home thinking about it. I couldn't, I was kind of making myself sick. And even leading up to the very first time I had to run an 8-minute mile for my freshman year, in my head I was like, I can't. I never have. How will I do this? I just had a hard time wrapping my head around that being something that I could accomplish. And I'll be honest, I barely squeaked by almost every single time. We'd report back. I'd be bringing in the tail end. And what honestly was most draining about that entire experience was the mental drain leading up to that starting line of that 8-minute mile. It was the sleepless nights thinking about what could go wrong, and again, this is not what I do. I'm not a runner, is what I would tell myself. And I just had such a hard time shaking that mentality. And I will say, as the years progressed and as I reached my senior season, it got less and less difficult to muster up that mental toughness each year. And I finally got under 745 my senior year. So that was a good accomplishment that I was proud to have achieved. So in that situation, through my entire college career, my limiting belief was that I'm not a runner. I never had been a runner. People got nervous when I was a hitter because when I base ran, I'd fall. I'd, trip up around my way. So in high school, if I could hit a home run, that would be ideal because that would alleviate some of those nerves of running the bases. Okay, so that's a little bit of background about me. And I know since then I've talked about how I am in fact a runner now. I have made decisions to run crazy races, up to a half marathon. So luckily that limiting belief hasn't stood in my way from allowing me to be successful in that arena. But I'll say yesterday, so for my workout again, that I had that benchmark, what they call it, a 1 mile benchmark run. And I was able to squeak out a 7:34 mile, which was close to a PR for me. So I was pretty excited about that. And with that, it was with a mask covering my nose and mouth, and it sucked. And if anybody's going to the gym right now, you are pretty much making the choice to waterboard yourself for an hour. It's crazy, but it's possible, right? So just think of all the things that we found possible over the last year. Incredible things that we've been able to accomplish with the adversity of a freaking pandemic, right? So you can, but not if you think you can't. Because remember, can't never could. Now, I must tell you, I say this as a girl who has just spent a weekend where I experienced an anxiety attack on top of a 12,000 foot mountain peak in Colorado. So I went skiing with some friends after a work trip. Thought it was a great idea. What could go wrong, right? I had just skied a few weeks ago. I got this. So we're having a wonderful day, enjoying the greens, dipped into a little bit of blue action, but was ready to go back to the green to finish my day. And as a group, I was with Carolyn, who you've met on the podcast before, and Danielle, her fiance, and we were going down our last stretch. Bloody Mary's at the bottom of the mountain, and we're ready. We're ready to finish the day. And we're going down this trail that is advertised as a catwalk, a nice scenic catwalk, just gradual down the mountains to enjoy the 12,000 foot view. And again, Bloody Mary's waiting for me at the bottom. So somehow we accidentally took a wrong turn, and what should have been that catwalk ended up being 2 consecutive black diamonds. And I'm not talking about an occasional mogul black diamond if you've been skiing before, where you've got little pockets here and there where if you feel so daring, you go and veer that way and go over that hump of the mogul. Entire mountain full of moguls. The whole dang thing. I pumped the brakes, pizza pie real quick, and like I said, anxiety hit me, fear hit me, and I said, I can't. And y'all, I currently shouldn't. I'm not prepared for this. I spent about 5 minutes crying under my goggles. Luckily, I was in a mask, so I don't know that anybody noticed that. But I was stuck in that can't mentality for quite some time. And then I remembered one thing. Can't never could. Mom instilled it with me. But really, seriously, I was not capable at that moment of using my skis and being a skier to ski down a Black Diamond Mountain. So what did I do? I took the skis off. I walked a little bit. And then when it got too steep, I put the skis back on and I sidestepped down the mountain. Sidestep down the mountain with skis on. One step at a time. It took 45 minutes and would have likely been like a 12 to 15 minute ski trip. My friends waited patiently and pep talked me all the way down. They even bought me the Bloody Mary because they felt bad about our mistake. And while I was in that state, unable to ski without falling, it was not pretty. I wish I could show you how not pretty it was, but it was pretty bad. I was able to sidestep without failing at the ultimate mission, which was to get down the mountain. Okay? So, all that to say, think about some of your limiting beliefs. And when I say limiting beliefs, I'm really talking about thoughts, opinions that you believe to be the absolute truth. What do you currently think that you cannot do? Is it to have the discipline to train to finally run that 5K? Is it to come to terms that you probably need to stay away from gluten, and gluten is in beer, and that's going to be really hard? That one is personal. Is it you currently can't find your soulmate amidst the chaos of a pandemic? Is it that you can't cut out the alcohol that's going to really help you edge out that wellness goal that you have for yourself? Is it that you can't complete a Whole30 diet successfully? Is it that you can't possibly take a break from social media because the fear of missing out would be too intense and it's not worth it? At what cost, right? So think about limiting beliefs for a second. We all have them. And we all are the way that we are. We grow and we have life experiences, and they lead us to think of these limiting beliefs, right? They lead us to have these, and then next thing we know, they're just there. We don't even really realize it. So it takes this intention every now and then to take a step back and think, what are my limiting beliefs? What's holding me back from doing the things that I just said? Or think of your personal list of the things that you want to do. What is truly holding you back? Is there something, an opinion that you have about yourself that you believe to be absolutely true, that you don't even give yourself a chance? You don't even give yourself the time of day to make it happen. Think about what that could be for you. And another approach that you can take to identify limiting beliefs would be perhaps to assess your behavior. Maybe you can't readily call out those, as I just did some of my own and some common ones in the bulleted list I just gave you. But think about situations where you've acted in negative or toxic ways, and think about why you did that. If you look closely at some of those toxic behaviors, you might discover that the underlying cause is limiting beliefs. You don't even give yourself a chance. So think about that. So if you aren't ready to soar down that double black diamond mountain, the goal, the dream, the aspiration seems too big, can you sidestep your way there? There is a way to get there, but not if you're stuck in that can't mentality, because can't never could. So think about those things that you want to accomplish. Think about those toxic behaviors that you don't want to have to deal with every single day. And those things that you know you can cut out to help you get to where you want to be. And as promised, the next month is going to focus in on some wise words from some women out there. And as I've decided to title and coin it is, That's What She Said. So this episode is truly focused on limiting beliefs, identifying those limiting beliefs, and not letting them get in your way anymore, and taking those small side steps to get there, okay? Some great words from, I don't know if you've heard of her before, Beyonce, perhaps? So Beyonce said, "I don't like to gamble, but if there's one thing I'm willing to bet on, it's myself." So to get you closer to that Beyonce mentality, just keep in mind, give yourself some grace, cut yourself some slack for having the beliefs that you do. Because according to Psychology Today, and this probably feels very familiar, that we learn our belief systems as very little children. And then we move through life creating experiences to match our beliefs. Look back in your own life and notice how often you've gone through the same experience. The reason I believe I can't, perhaps, is because of these experiences that have given me some sort of evidence behind the fact that maybe I can't be doing these things, right? But think about how these limiting beliefs can negatively impact our lives and our potential. We're all here because we have so much potential that we want to tap into, right? So I hope that you've started to think about unearthing your own limiting beliefs. And some of the ways that you can do that if maybe you don't quite know where to start. So I took a note from, again, the Psychology Today article I referenced just a few moments ago. And a couple of the takeaways of how you can get those limiting beliefs out in the open air and work towards changing the way that you look at these things. Step one is write down the limiting belief that you have. It talks about playing detective and following through and seeing what holds you back. You know the things that you want to accomplish. If you followed along the show, you've made very clear and very well intentioned behind what is that going to look like for you. What are your limiting beliefs? Write those down. Put them on paper, stare them in the eyes. Tell them this town ain't big enough for the two of us, okay? The next thing you want to do once you write those things down is acknowledge that they are beliefs, not truths. This is often the hardest step. You feel like the limitations are real. There is literally something holding me back, Audrey. What are you talking about that they are beliefs and not truths? But really stare them in the eye. Really, really take a look and understand how you can be better prepared to handle those beliefs, not truths, when they rear their ugly head again. Next thing you want to do is try on a different belief. Try it on for size. Use your imagination. Take a look at that belief and try on a new one that's aligned with what you want. Think about this example here. So if you have a limiting belief that you will never be able to save up enough money to go on that dream vacation, or to save enough money for a really nice emergency fund, or for a new house that you'd really like to go out there and pursue, or a new car. So a limiting belief could be that you don't have the ability to save in such a way. You don't make enough money to save in such a way. You've had difficulties in the past, so you're going to continue to have difficulties in the future. And notice how none of those beliefs are serving you, getting you any closer to what you want, right? So try to pivot and try on a new belief. Say something, again, give yourself a little bit of grace, cut yourself some slack, and say something like, you know what, my financial difficulties in the past have taught me so much, and I'm prepared to handle them more successfully in the future, right? Shifting that belief. Or, I talked about a couple of other examples of some other things that you might be trying to achieve, some other thresholds you're looking to reach, whether it's running that 5K. I've tried in the past and it didn't work, and now I know what I want to do moving forward to make sure it does work, because I can be a runner. Think about your belief system and what's standing in your way and what could be on the other side of that roadblock. What beautiful thing is right around the corner waiting for you to get there, to just push through that barrier, that barrier that oftentimes is self-imposed, to be honest. And then lastly, take different action. This might feel kind of scary, but bear with me. Act as if your new belief is true. In other words, if this were true, how would you behave? If I am putting this belief out into the universe that I now know and I've learned through the past and how I'm going to move forward is fill in the blank, you're going to act accordingly. It will align for you, but it takes this intention and these steps to work towards where you want to be. And remember, we're looking for a Beyonce belief system here. Limiting those limitations that we put and pose on ourselves to bet on ourselves. Because again, remember, as Beyonce said, I don't like to gamble, but if there's one thing I'm willing to bet on, it's myself. Choose today. Choose right here, right now, to start betting on yourself. You'll see that that's where the magic happens. You'll see that you are capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for. I know I talked about skiing in the beginning of this episode, and it is just incredible to see what the human body is capable of. And maybe you find yourself in a place where you can more easily push yourself physically. Maybe you're an elite athlete, or you've been there before and you can kind of tap on it again and access that part of who you are again. Maybe you're looking to push yourself more intellectually. I'll say that's where sometimes I find more challenge. I think that I grew up in a way that pushed me physically and athletically, and having that competitive edge was very important. But as I progress, I find myself wanting the intellect piece and wanting the mental challenge to come into play in such a way that it's also making sure that I'm continuing to grow, continuing to learn, not making excuses, not getting lazy. So that for me has been one of my areas of opportunity that I'm continuing to pursue. So when you think about some of these big challenges or these big goals that you set for yourself in this year, I think starting with these limiting beliefs is going to be the place to be, going to be the place to direct your attention, so that when you really stop to think about it and you remember can't, never, could, so I'm taking that word out of my vocabulary, and you're remembering Beyonce bets on herself and look how far that got her. I think she's doing pretty good, right? So how can you bet on you? Okay? So I hope you found that helpful. And through the rest of this series, you're going to find the theming around wise words from women. So that's what she said. And I really hope that these little bite-sized insights are going to help you to get closer to what you really want to get out of this life, out of this year, out of this week, out of this day. Whatever your focus is right now, take note of what we've talked about and see how you can direct that into an intentional practice this week for you. So hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Hope you are able to share it with a friend. If you're not following on the socials, I am Oddly Enough Podcast on Facebook, on Instagram, and on YouTube. So those are where you can connect with me and the show. You can see the visual version of the episodes I'll post on the YouTube every week alongside the podcast episodes, which are audio on anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google, to name a few. If you head over to the Linktree website, it's linktr.ee/oddly enough podcast, and it's AUDDLY enough podcast. You can see all the other sites that I'm currently operating on. There's some great merchandise coming soon, and there's already a couple things up on that page over there. In addition, I am starting to put together a WordPress website, so I can kind of add a little bit more insights onto that, and another way to engage with the Pod Squad. And yeah, I think that's all I've got for y'all today. Yesterday was International Women's Week, so I hope everybody enjoyed that. I saw some really great inspirational quotes floating around, and a lot of general inspiration happening with some of these awareness months. So hopefully everybody is doing wonderful out there. Hopefully you're inspired. Hopefully that y'all just stay awesome, stay beautiful, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.